All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started today with subroutines. So this is a very brand new topic, and in many ways it is what I call orthogonal to what we have talked about so far. In other words, it is, it's related to programming, okay, obviously. But it is not, you don't need to understand arrays in order to understand subroutines. Okay, you can use subroutines without arrays. You can use subroutines. You can use subroutines even without conditional statements or even loops. Okay, it is independent to all those concepts that we have talked about. But it is really a good idea to make sure that you already understand all those other topics thoroughly before you move on to subroutines. Okay. Are there any questions before we get started with subroutines? Yep.
On a binary search, I went to the website, the Moodle, and how do you download the file so you can open? I downloaded OpenOffice. How do you download a file so you can open OpenOffice instead of opening in the window? When I double click
I would save the file first and then navigate to that location and then open it.
So you right click it and then you go under the save thing?
Okay, this is how I would do it. It depends on how you set up your browser. Let me answer your question first.
When we upload, do you want us to change the file name so that it has our name?
Nope, there's no need to change the file name because when you turn in your homework assignment, you already authenticate as yourself. So I know for sure who turned in which file. So that's fine. That's not a problem. Okay. So the way I would do this is, if I click this file, on this browser, it pops up this screen automatically, which means, I can just click Save File, click OK, and then remember, where I actually saved the file. Then I can open OpenOffice, go to that location, and open that file. Okay, so this particular way of doing things definitely works.
What browser are you in?
This is just regular Firefox.
Regular Firefox?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
On Internet Explorer, do you right click it or left?
Hey, do you guys have any questions? Sorry.
Oh, no. We're talking about the homework.
I know, but that's okay. Can you guys wait and then I can address your questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Yep, go ahead.
On Internet Explorer, you don't. It has the listing like save as target or open with.
Mm-hmm.
How do you save it to a folder and then open it from that folder?
You have to navigate to that folder after you save it, then open the file.
How do you save it to that folder?
Does Internet Explorer have a default location?
No, it doesn't. It just brings up a file dialog and you just save it wherever.
Okay, well, that's, so you can specify exactly where you want to save the file when it pops up the dialog box.
Okay, but when you go to save it, it's part of the when you right click it, it will be part of the drop down list of save this.
Save link as. I think.
Save link as. Okay.
It's either save link as or save file as or save target as, depending on the browser.
Okay.
Yep.
I think it's target.
Save target as with Internet Explorer. Because they're all slightly different,
I wasn't able to bring it in with the Explorer because it only showed the bottom half of the screen with empty cells.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that if you open it in the browser, it only shows you the bottom half. You don't see the top half of the screen. The window that opens up is small, and it only shows you the bottom half of the program. There's no way to scroll to the top half of it.
No way to scroll to the top half.
Yeah.
Maybe I should reboot the system
I,
back to Windows so I can see what it looks like in Windows.
What I had to get it in Firefox, and then I could open it up and saved it, and then opened it up, and I could do it just fine.
Mm-hmm.
But Explorer couldn't handle it.
Explorer has problems with Moodle, in general anyway. So I recommend the use of Firefox or even Opera
Chrome.
or Chrome to do it. Okay, so let me answer your questions a little bit earlier.
Well, I mean, I got it cleared up. My question was just when it's saying A bracket M is less than K, when I go to the bracket, I pick the number that's underneath that bracket to go along with K. So, I mean, I got it cleared up, but...
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all resolved?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, very good. Any other questions related to the homework assignment? No other questions? I suspect, some people have turned it in already, like 4 people turned it in. I'm not sure whether they turned in the final version or just using Moodle as a, online storage, device. But 4 people have turned it in so far, which is good. The due date is the 21st, which is on Thursday, right before this class. Yes, sir?
I still don't see on Moodle that you graded my first assignment.
I should have graded the first assignment already. And you don't see it? I cannot show it here, but later on, I can, show it to you, or we can go back to my office and then we can take a look. Okay. Any other questions? No other questions. Okay. If there are no questions, let's go ahead and talk about subroutines, which is a big topic. Okay. Subroutines, combined with parameters can be quite confusing and overwhelming. So we're going to start slow with this topic. And what I would do is I will first introduce subroutines without parameters. Yep.
Could you save, I know you save the screen captures, could you save the files that you do every day onto Moodle so we, like you used to do, so we can download them?
Sure.
I can't write as fast as you.
Right. I just have to remember to download and upload the files at the end of the day because sometimes I just don't remember to do it.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at a very simple program that uses, a subroutine. Okay, so we have the definition of a subroutine here, define subroutine, and we'll call this subroutine, sub1. Okay, for the lack of a better description. And inside the subroutine, we'll do something that's really easy, something that we already know, how to do, such as incrementing the value of x just by 1. And define sub. This is the end of the definition of a subroutine. Increase the indentation. And then outside of the subroutine definition, we will go ahead and write the main program. First thing is I'm going to initialize x to 0. And then what I'll do is I will invoke subroutine 1, sub 1. Then I will say x gets, I don't care. Let's say x times 3, okay? And then I'll go ahead and invoke sub1 again. That's my program. I want to make this program short, and yet it is long enough to illustrate everything that I want to illustrate with subroutines. So this is definitely something that we have not seen before. The first thing is, what is this, define sub, end sub thing? What is a subroutine? A subroutine is essentially a piece of code, a piece of pseudocode that has a name. In this case, the name of this little chunk of code on line 2 is sub1. Every time I want to increment x by 1, in this case, instead of saying, instead of sprinkling x gets x plus 1 throughout my program, every time I want to increment x by 1, I can just say invoke sub1. And that will invoke the code to add 1 to x and then come back to wherever it came from earlier. Okay? Is this worthwhile doing? I mean, it seems like it's an overkill for incrementing a variable. Yep, go ahead.
It's definitely worthwhile. If you want to do something repetitively in the program, then even if there's a bug later on and figure out what it is, you can go back and edit it in the subroutine instead of having to change it in the
Exactly. Okay? It helps in 2 ways. In other words, it helps if what I want to do here is much longer and I want to do it from different places of my program, it's worthwhile because now instead of copy and pasting the code, I only have to define it once, and then whenever I want that done, I just refer to the name and say invoke that subroutine. Okay? And I will repeat this several times from now on. Copy, paste, and modify is bad. Okay, and you guys can repeat after me whenever I say that. We can make a chant out of this. Copy, paste, and modify is bad. Okay, it is bad for many reasons. One, it is very inefficient. In other words, when you use copy, paste, and modify, you are putting copies of the same code all over the place, which is not very efficient. This way, we have exactly one copy of that code. It's just that we can trigger the execution of that code from different places of the program. But that's not even the worst part of copy, paste, and modify. The worst part of copy, paste, and modify is if you have a bug in the code, that you did not fix before copying, pasting, and modifying, then you have replications of that bug everywhere in your program. The question now is, when you debug your program and you figure out, oh, the original piece of code had a bug, can you remember all the places where you pasted that code? If you cannot remember all those places where you pasted the code, then your bug will continue to live on because certain copies of the code will still be unfixed. Okay? As opposed to this approach where you only have one single copy of the code and you fix it, this one single copy, you're done. Okay? Because everything else is just referring and saying, I want to do that again. Okay? If that is already fixed, then you don't have to fix that code anymore. There's only one copy to fix. The benefits of using a subroutine won't be obvious until later. So at this point, we just want to illustrate the mechanism of using a subroutine. One thing you have to remember about subroutines is whatever is inside define sub and end sub, at least in this class, this code or line 2 does not execute until someone says invoke that code. Is that okay so far? So what is the first line that we will start execution at?
Line 2.
It'll be line 5, not line 2, because line 2 is inside the definition of a subroutine. It does not get executed until someone asks and say, I want to execute that code. The first line that we execute in this particular pseudocode is line 5, the first line that is outside of the definition of a subroutine. Are we okay so far with this? Okay. So we'll go ahead and open up a new window for the trace. So the trace doesn't seem to be too bad here. I don't even need comments because this code has no conditional statement, has no loops, has no condition to evaluate whatsoever. We can literally start with just line number. There's no comment needed here. We do have one variable called x here. Okay, so we'll start with these two columns. It's kind of implying that we will need more columns later on, but we'll just start with these two. We can say the precondition is x can have anything because guess what? Line 5 is going to override it the first thing we do in this program. So now we start executing on line 5, x gets initialized to a 0. Okay, that part is not mysterious. This is something that we have done again and again and again. The next line is line 6, which is something that is new. Line 6 says invoke sub 1. Now, when you invoke a subroutine, it is almost like you're throwing a boomerang. Okay? Now, what do I mean by throwing a boomerang? How is a boomerang different from throwing a knife or other objects? It comes back. It comes back to wherever you are. Okay? The point where you launch the boomerang. Of course, only if you do it correctly. Right? There are people who can throw a boomerang and, oh, okay, I have no idea where the boomerang is now. Okay? So that's the interesting part. How can I remember that line 6 is where I invoke the subroutine and I should come back to almost here later on? That's the question. Okay? I need a way to remember where to go back to once I get into the subroutine. Okay? So here we have something that is completely different from what we do before. Well, not different, but in addition to what we have done so far. At this point, when I get to line 6, I allocate a new column. Now, this is something that we have not done before. In the past, we always analyze the code and say we need 4 columns, we need 5